It's been over 1 year since I started this channel.
Woo! Yeah!
One of my first and arguably favorite videos on this channel was messing around with this guy. This
is a work of art. This is bullshit.
This is my ASUS Chromebox CN60. If you haven't seen the original video where I explored emulation on this, you should definitely give that a watch. It won't really be necessary for this video, but here's the too long didn't read version, since it's been over a year and the audio on that was, rough.
Chrome OS is like Linux. In fact, it technically is Linux. It's a Linux distribution.
Oh, brother, this
Audio?
stinks!
Yeah. We installed more RAM on this guy, boosting it from its stock 2GB to 16GB. I chose Batocera as my OS and booted it from a USB 3.2 flash drive, this one in particular. I was able to run up to the 5th generation of consoles with no problem. The 6th generation had some hit or miss compatibility, with Dreamcast working the best, GameCube running okay, and PS2 running not really that good. I didn't test Xbox emulation due to me assuming it wouldn't run really well at all. At the end, I said for the price I was finding on eBay that this would definitely be a great retro gaming box, if you happen to find one for a good deal. Yeah, honestly, we didn't do a whole lot with this guy. We really only did emulation, and honestly, I still think that's the best use case for something like this. But at the end of the day, this is a computer, and there's really no limit to what you can do with a computer. So I wanted to explore some other use cases for one of these, for people who may not be interested in using this as an emulation box. So let's take another dive into the Chromebox. Hey, thanks so much for watching up to this point. If you like what you're seeing so far, please support the channel by dropping a like and subscribing. I have a lot of video ideas that I plan on going forward with eventually. Ideally, I'll be able to execute on them quicker as time goes on, as I get better with editing and things of that nature. If you want to be notified when those come out, make sure to turn on notifications as well. Oh, one last thing. I really enjoy hearing from you guys. At the end of the video, drop a comment letting me know if you liked it, if you didn't, what I should improve upon, why I wear the mask. I get a lot of those. But I do appreciate all the advice that you guys drop in the comments, and I do read essentially every comment. So thank you again, and let's get back to the video. So the first thing I wanted to do before any OS shenanigans is install more internal storage, since it comes stock with only 16GB. I bought a 128GB NVMe SSD for $13 on eBay. I also had to buy a new AC adapter. I won't include this in the final price of everything, since this was me being an idiot and losing the original one somehow. However, if you acquire a Chromebox and don't end up with a charger for it, I'll link the one I'm using below that has held up decently well so far. Going into this project, I had 3 ideas for other use cases that we could explore: a smart TV box, a mini desktop, and a mini server. With that in mind, I loaded Ventoy with several ISOs to test. I even found an Android TV image that YouTuber Badger DIY put onto a Lenovo ThinkCenter. This really sucked at first. Android TV did not run for me at all, and I didn't get anywhere close to installing it. I assume there's some sort of guide that I could have followed to make this work. But the mindset that I had going into this whole project was minimizing the amount of bending over backwards I had to do to make these things work. So that left Android TV off the table. I tried Android x86 since I figured I could fake an Android TV sort of deal with that, but after logging into my Wi-Fi, the install process did not go any further. I took to the internet to see if there was another OS that I could use for this use case. After a lot of searching, I came across an OS that I have actually heard of before, LibreElec. This OS was built with Kodi in mind. Hell, that's even the tagline of the OS, just enough OS for Kodi. Once I was reminded that Kodi was a thing, I also remembered that Batocera has Kodi built into it. So because I already had it set up, I played around with Kodi on the flash drive from last time. I wasn't having much luck installing apps, but the proof of concept was there. So I moved over to LibreElec, where the live ISO demo ran great. Now that I had an OS chosen, it was time to install to the... Where the f is my internal 128GB SSD? Okay, maybe I can flash the ISO straight to the NVMe drive using my SSD enclosure. Still nothing. I don't even see the option to boot into it. After a lot of insanity and trying it over and over, I eventually gave up and went to the 2 places I knew I could get answers: the Book forums and the Mr. Chromebox website. I looked around to see if someone had asked about this before, if there was any information about how the drives worked on the Chromebox, like a compatibility guide of sorts. I wasn't seeing anything, so I caved and dropped a post, knowing I could very well be flamed for my stupid question. It was late in the night, so I turned in and hoped I'd get an answer sometime tomorrow. I woke up to see that the Mr. Chromebox responded to me. He rose from his tomb, which I can only imagine is covered wall to wall with Chromebox running all flavors of Linux. He looked upon me and called me a moron and a whack-ass, and that I'd been using the wrong type of drive the entire time. This is the theatrical version of what happened. What he really said was that the Chromebox didn't support NVMe, only M.2 SATA. Son of a... I'm really thankful for his response because I wouldn't have thought that was an issue. My thought process was, it fits in the slot, it must work. Kind of like that it goes in the square hole TikTok that was really popular a few years ago.
That's right, it goes in the square hole.
I went ahead and browsed around on eBay for an M.2 SATA SSD, and the best thing I was finding was a King Chuxing M.2 SATA that you could break at certain points depending on which length you needed. Wait a second, King Chuxing? Why does that sound familiar?
You know, it really does feel like a King Chuxing kind of day.
No idea. Anyways, hoping for a Hail Mary, I went to Amazon, and to my surprise, I found a brand new M.2 SATA drive for $17, and I could get it by the next day. This was compared to about $20 on eBay with 3 to 4 days shipping. I instantly bought the King Spec NT Series 128GB M.2 2242 SATA SSD, and patiently waited by the door until tomorrow. I went ahead and took apart the Chromebox for what was hopefully the last time. I swapped the drives out, booted it up, and...
Victory.
We're in. Now that we've got that straightened out, let's explore some of these ideas that I had. Installing LibreElect to the new internal 128GB SSD goes without a hitch. I set it up like I did on Batocera and started to explore the App Store, or I guess the app repository is the correct phrase? Or add-ons? Whatever, you get the gist. My idea for this is that I want to be able to access my Plex server, YouTube, and Twitch. These are really the only 3 things I use for streaming content anymore, and as long as I can get a browser running, I can get things like Netflix if I need it. Installing everything went well enough, but running everything was a different story. The official Plex add-on kept giving me an error and telling me to check the logs, but I couldn't find where that was talking about, so I just kind of gave up. I went and installed this unofficial Plex add-on, which worked first try. I then installed the YouTube and Twitch add-ons, which both asked me for API keys. I eventually figured out the Twitch one as it directed me to a site run by the people who made the add-on, but YouTube I couldn't quite figure out, even after reading the GitHub repository. I will note, the Twitch app requires you to give channel permissions to the application, but at the end of the day I'm not super worried. But always make sure you read the fine print before clicking accept on anything. Twitch ran surprisingly well. I was expecting some more issues with live streams, but monitoring from my computer, the Chromebox was keeping up perfectly fine. Plus, you don't get any ads. It does stop the stream for you like you would get ads, but you don't get any actual ads. I didn't have any hiccups, and I could pause and resume and it would catch back up to real time. Plex was fantastic, no issues there. My only gripe would be the YouTube application, but it's not a deal breaker. I even tried an unofficial add-on called Tubed, but I didn't have luck on that front either. I even logged into my Google account with nothing really coming up. If I had to rank this in terms of how good of an idea it is for this machine, I'd say that this was about a 7 or 8 out of 10. But this is just one use case. Let's see if we can get this guy to stream the media instead of just playing it.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the now.
For basically my entire home labbing career, I have not once attempted to use Ubuntu server. Maybe it's because I'm stubborn and drank the Arch Linux Kool-Aid early on, but I always figured I could just get better performance from installing Arch and configuring everything myself. And honestly, that probably has some truth to it. According to the system monitor built into Plex, my home server on average sits at around 8% RAM usage and 4% CPU usage at idle, which is really good seeing as the specs are really nothing to write home about. But I have always wondered about Ubuntu server, and now is probably the best time to try it. Actually, based on my logic, this would be the worst time since I'm really limited on CPU power and RAM. Well, whatever, I'm trying it anyways. And I will say, the install process was really straightforward and seamless. After I got booted in, I figured I'd try some of the default benchmarks that channels like Hardware Haven have kind of popularized, because while CPU benchmark is nice and something that I reference a lot, what really matters is how it runs in the field. I went ahead and pulled the Docker image I usually use for Minecraft servers, and it's not running? This tripped me up for a good while. I ended up reinstalling Ubuntu Server at least 2 more times, uninstalling Docker, installing Portainer so I could read the logs. I eventually figured out that the container was just failing. Sure enough, I looked at it and it needed me to accept the EULA. Now, normally I'd just be mad at myself, but I copied and pasted this command with full confidence that this should just work directly from the containers page. One would assume that it should just work, and I shouldn't have to do any additional research to get it working. But whatever. I eventually got the server up and running, and I connected via LAN, and well, at first I was a little concerned when this chunk just straight up didn't load. But as I let the server warm up a bit, things were actually running really good, like surprisingly good. I was actually kind of blown away about how well the server was running. The server was maxing out on its CPU and RAM, but for just me on the server, it was holding up very well. Now, I know that servers are generally meant to be a multi-person thing. Unfortunately, I didn't have multiple people to stress test this with me, nor did I have the time. Maybe I can address this in a follow-up video or a short if I manage to get a group of people to help me with this. But for one person, this runs amazingly. Next, I spun up a Docker container using Docker Compose from my good old friend Jellyfin. Truth be told, I was running Jellyfin pretty much exclusively for a couple years up until about a few months ago. But Jellyfin is by far one of my favorite ways to serve up my media, and it's completely free and open source for you to run locally, so you don't have to worry about any subscription fees. Anyway, after that container starts, we can set up the admin account and add some media from my personal collection. And now that I'm going through all my footage after the fact, I'm just now realizing I never got any of me playing my media or going through Jellyfin's dashboard.
You failed!
That's really embarrassing. Listen, I apologize for not getting this footage, just trust me when I say it ran well when I gave it a go. I was actually really impressed about how fast it could scrub through a video when I played it. Back to the video. This playback was really great. While this is just on the local network, I think that's probably going to be most people's use of Jellyfin. Not a lot of people are trying to serve their media outside of their home network. Again, I only tested this with just me using the Jellyfin server. But judging how nice this ran with one client running, I can imagine this handling 2 or maybe 3 streams with no issues, especially if you hook this directly up to your router. Overall, this was a pretty great experience. I was actually expecting this to be not a great time and was pleasantly surprised. I could see myself using this as a little local Jellyfin box to take with me out on trips. Although in that case, I would probably want an actual desktop to run it truly locally. Speaking of which, now this I know is going to be a stretch for this guy. When I was trying out OSs earlier with Android TV and Android x86, I tried Libuntu, which was not a great time. Ubuntu lineage strikes again with being too bloated. Kidding, of course. But on that note, I'm going to try something from the Arch family. I could just use Arch, but to avoid the I don't want to install Arch people, we're just going to use EndeavourOS. We can get it in a nice variety of desktop environments, which kind of reminds me of how Linux Mint works on the download page, but for the sake of having something lightweight, we're going to go with XFCE4. The install goes without a hitch, and I wait the night to install a bunch of different games that may or may not work. I loaded up the Steam Big Picture UI, and that ran at about 5 frames per second. I exited that and started running each of the games on the test bench. First, the new Can It Run Doom, Half-Life.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System.
And it definitely ran. No issues here. I got so into it, I nearly let Gordon start the Resonance Cascade. What an idiot. Next, the sequel to Can It Run Doom, Half-Life 2. It didn't run great to start. After fiddling with the settings and turning them down to about medium, we were getting pretty consistent frame rates. I was hitting 60s for the most part, but the highs and lows were all over the place when things started to get very Combine heavy, I guess you could say, but definitely really playable.
coming soon?
One of the best zombie survival games since, ever.
You're serious, aren't you? Yeah, I'm serious.
What the fuck is that?
Left 4 Dead 2 is a game that scares me to play online after someone hacked into my lobby on stream. This game runs like... Now, is this possibly because I have a stupid number of add-ons that the game has to load? Possibly, but I wasn't willing, nor did I think to disable them during testing. So, I just turned things down as low as possible and rocked with maybe 24 FPS. Everything still looked pretty decent on my end, but 24 FPS, that's playable, but I'm not the biggest fan. After that, I wanted to give the Chromebox an easy win. We're playing, wait for it, damn, that never gets old. Enter the Gungeon is a classic I like to come back to time, but don't have the skills to finish or get anywhere near the end. I preemptively dropped my video settings to be lower just in case we started running into any snags, and we got low 50s throughout the entire experience, which is pretty nice. I was really sussed out by the title screen running at 20s and 30s, but I'm glad everything looked great in-game. Easy win for the Chromebox. Now, for 2 more modern games that I had thought would possibly work. Lethal Company and Repo, they didn't run. I don't know why. I think it has something to do with them both being made in Unity, or at least I think they are. They had the same little loading animation when they attempted to boot up, but they never got anywhere near the title screen, and I didn't feel like attempting to debug weird Steam issues today. Well, that's all I had lined up. All in all, I think this was a pretty solid experience. It did a lot better than I was expecting in desktop mode. And if it could do this well with gaming, I feel like it could do well with Word, YouTube, all the normal desktop things. You could probably make your own DIY iMac by mounting this to the back of a monitor or something. It has the holes to do it, and I assume this is VESA compliant. VESA? I don't know. You just have to have a monitor with a VESA mount on the back of it. Now, I know I said I only had 3 new ideas, but... Yeah, I wanted to see if installing Batocera on the internal SSD would give me just a little more of an edge to conquer the 6th generation. I went ahead and used Batocera's built-in installer to install the latest version of Batocera to the internal drive. Man, I used install a little too much there, but that's okay. I don't know if there's an easy way to move over all of the data from the flash drive to the M.2, but I didn't really bother with that too much. I moved over some 6th generation titles as well as some titles from the Xbox. This was one area that I didn't touch on last time that I wanted to give a try with the new transfer speeds. This is my first time playing Halo Combat Evolved. I played one of the later titles with my older brother once in a blue moon, but that is the extent of my Halo history. Loading into the game...
Sir.
My sound isn't even working. I played this on stream originally, and for whatever reason, I could not get the sound working, so I have no clue what all of this dialogue at the start says. No idea. I just know that Master Chief gets woken up from nap time and
Cortana
goes bad real quick. This did not run very well, though. I want to say I was getting maybe 10, 15 FPS, and it definitely tanked when effects started to appear on the screen like rifle blasts. The style was really nice. It reminds me of the Half-Life era of things. Not a great experience, definitely on the edge of playable though.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going back to the Dreamcast. I know it works, but Crazy Taxi is just too good of a title not to come back to, so why not? Never gets old. Perfect. I don't know why I didn't try this out in my original video. I definitely had PS2 games in my library that I could have tried. Listen, I know we already played this, but I kind of wanted to see if there were any differences between how these two ran. Overall, I didn't notice anything that glaring. This might be running slightly slower than it was on Endeavor OS, but nothing super noticeable to me at least. However, I did notice this control mapping. What the
Raymond
is this? Why are they mapped this way? Why is this the default? The PS2 had enough buttons for this not to be janky, and yet it was. Whatever. Anyways, all in all, this ran basically the same as it did before. Nothing to note between this and the PC version. Man, I love this game. I really need to get back into playing it. But how did it run? That's the question we're asking here.
I'll take that, Hernandez.
Hey, that's my paper, man. That's money.
This is drug money.
Based on the audio, you can probably tell it's maybe running about 15 FPS. It's not unplayable, but definitely not ideal. Everything definitely feels like it's running in half speed. I was hoping that this would be able to push through and kind of make the 20s, but no dice on here. Maybe I could mess with the emulator settings, but I'm trying to leave most things stock, and I believe the PS2 emulator is only emulating at native resolution, so I don't know what more I could really change to get a better result. While I was about to wrap things up, I had an idea. What if I just stream my games from my gaming PC to this guy? This is something I did with the Surface Pro using Steam Link, but I've had issues with Steam Link connectivity in the past. In fact, I even have issues streaming from my stream... me, I made the mistake. I made the mistake everyone usually does. Oh, to my Stream Deck. Yeah, no, idiot. In fact, I've even had issues streaming from my Steam Deck to my PC when they're right across the hall from one another. So I wanted to try another option, and luckily for me, Batocera has just the thing in mind. For those who haven't been introduced, Moonlight, formerly Limelight, is just an open source version of NVIDIA's game stream protocol. You used to have to stream your games from your NVIDIA graphics card using GeForce Experience to the Moonlight client, meaning I would have been since I'm not Team Green. Thankfully, the open source Chads created Sunshine to pair with Moonlight. Get it? Sunshine and Moonlight? No, because Sunshine loves everyone because it supports AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel GPUs as well as software encoding. So even if you don't have a GPU, Sunshine will let you stream your games to anything. And it's extremely low latency. Streaming through Steam can be alright depending on your circumstances, but when I booted Moonlight and Sunshine and compared it to streaming via Steam, the differences were, dare I say it, night and day. I will say, I did have some issues getting Sunshine to open things on my desktop to start, but I have a feeling it was because I didn't do a restart after installing Sunshine. Getting Sunshine set up was really easy and the documentation was really clear and concise. Moonlight was also really easy to set up on the Chromebox. You do have to remote into the Chromebox to set it up, but honestly the documentation on Batocera's side was really great. Also, before we get testing, neither my PC nor the Chromebox are connected via Ethernet, so they're both rocking off of Wi-Fi. I wanted to go all in on a somewhat more modern game that I know my Steam Deck even has some trouble running. The Outer Worlds. And would you look at that title screen? Beautiful. All in all, this was pretty solid. There was a small amount of input lag, but I could definitely live with this. It'd probably be imperceptible for a game that didn't require precise inputs, but even for just a first-person shooter, I could definitely work with this. Just for shits and giggles, let's try Steam Remote Play on the same game. Huh. Well, I wasn't expecting this to work as well as it did. In fact, I didn't notice practically any input latency at all through Steam Remote Play. There were some hiccups at first, but after that it was pretty much smooth sailing. Okay, one more quick pause. So I was trying out Steam Remote Play for my Steam Deck the other night, thinking that maybe it just works better now. Maybe there was some sort of update that changed how it worked and now the latency is a lot better or the crashing I was getting doesn't happen. But I felt very validated because that crashed my Steam Deck at one point. I've never had it crash my Steam Deck before, but trying to do Remote Play froze up my Steam Deck. So Steam Remote Play, at least for me, can be very hit or miss. I don't know if it's just an issue with my Steam Deck or if there's some sort of underlying issue, but I've always just had some issue trying to do Remote Play. Even though my Steam Deck currently resides maybe less than 100 feet from my PC, so there shouldn't be any sort of connection issues there, but I don't know. Maybe I don't understand completely how it works. Either way, Moonlight and Sunshine are great projects, and if you're having issues with Steam Remote Play like I am, I'd definitely recommend checking these out. Though I'd probably recommend that your main PC be hooked up via Ethernet, especially if you want to stream outside of your network. Oh, and I guess that I forgot that I could just play Steam games on Batocera too. I assume Half-Life will run, and Half-Life 2 will most likely run. Let's try Lethal Company, Repo, and Left 4 Dead 2 and see if those will run here. Nope. Nuh-uh. And Left 4 Dead 2 ran up until I started the game, and then it made that sound that I know all too well from my Gary's Mod days. Source Engine repeating the last sound it heard over and over again because it's crashing out.
I even disabled all my add-ons because I wanted to see if that would boost the performance that we were seeing. Okay, so maybe leave the Steam games to a more powerful machine. Or, in this case, a different OS, since Left 4 Dead 2 definitely ran on Endeavor. It might not have been good, but it definitely ran. The Chromebox CN60 is a really interesting machine, and I mean that in a good way. For roughly $70, the price of a modern AAA game, according to some companies, you can have something that can stream your media collection, run a Minecraft server, play a multitude of games, and stream your games from your PC to your TV. And honestly, it can probably do a lot more than that. The CPU is pretty underpowered, but I'm genuinely surprised at how well it held up with what we threw at it. Maybe down the line I'll come back to see if we can overclock it, or, maybe add some better cooling, we'll see. But I'm pretty happy with this second look at what the Chromebox can do. That's all I've got for you right now. Next time, I think we're gonna get a little bit janky. Yes, even more janky than the Chromebox. Take care, and I'll see you next time.